Welcome everybody to the fourth and last in our Survivor, the Australian Librarian series for 2020. We have had Outwit, we've had Outplay, and we have lasted through Outlast. And now we come to the discussion panel, or as I like to call it, the Tribal Council. We do have some housekeeping to get out of the way before we proceed any further. So look, thank you for attending. This is the last of our 4 webinars. Recordings of the earlier sessions may be found linked from the ALIA Queensland blog page. Everyone who is in attendance will have received an email from the ALIA Queensland email account, which has a link to that blog page at the base of it. So that's where it is to be found. Your mics are muted. Please use the chat function to ask questions. These will be monitored and selected questions will be directed to our panel. We may not have the opportunity to feed every question in, but certainly questions that are asked repeatedly or are just absolutely amazing questions, we will do our level best to make sure that the panel gets to answer those difficult questions. This session is being recorded. The recording has actually commenced. If you do not wish your attendants to be a part of that, like, now is the time to make your excuses. Change your name to something that nobody will ever recognize. It's a safe place to be. Okay, cool. The hashtag for social media is #ALIA Queensland Survivor. So people who are contributing to the social media feeds, etc. If we can trend, I'll be forever grateful. And if not, then that's okay too. But it's #ALIA Queensland Survivor. I'd like to begin with an acknowledgement of country. We begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the many and diverse lands from which we meet today. We pay our respects to elders past, present, and emerging. And we give thanks for their enduring stewardship of the environments in which we live and work. The land, the seas, the waters, the air, the very environments in which we exist in this country have been under the custodianship of the Indigenous peoples of this land for tens of thousands of years, a span of time that dwarfs the span of any other civilization on this planet. And I just wanted to take this opportunity to acknowledge the work that they have done to create the land that we all enjoy. Order of events. We are going to have a panel discussion. So we have our 4 panelists and a number of questions that have been drawn from the earlier sessions. We will have each of our panelists introducing themselves. After that, we will have a discussion that will run for, a solid half hour. We are then going to have some ALIA awards, and we have James Nicholson, the manager for ALIA Queensland, the Queensland manager for ALIA. I'm never quite sure about the way to line those terms up. But there'll be a couple of awards being presented, and we're also going to be presenting the 2020 Queensland Library Achiever of the Year Award. And we aim to be finished by 6:30 in the evening. So hopefully everything will run well. Our discussion panel for this evening consists of Anna Raunik, who is the Executive Director of Content and Client Services at SLQ. We also have Sarah Howard, who is the Acting Manager for QUT's Library Service. Angela Orth, who's the Manager of the TAFE Queensland Library Network. And, and Matt Pascoe, who is the Customer Experience Manager for Ipswich Libraries. I'm going to give each of our panelists an opportunity to introduce themselves and speak briefly to themselves, their organisation, and the experience of the year that we have been surviving and the impact of COVID on all of that. Each of you will have 3 to 5 minutes. Anna, please.
Well, thanks for the opportunity to speak, and I'm looking forward to hearing other perspectives on this amazing year that we've all lived through. I thought I'd just give you a brief rundown on what happened at the State Library and where we are now. So as the introduction said, I'm responsible for the client services, front of house services, which are both the physical and the online, including the catalogue, as well as our collections. So we run a public space here, as most of you know, at South Bank, but also have a distribution centre at Cannon Hill and another one at Cairns. So we went into shutdown on the 23rd of March with all staff working from home and the building being shut, a first for most of us, I'm sure, and followed the Queensland Government directives. Like most institutions, we went in lockdown to a pivot to digital, which wasn't a new opportunity for us, but to go fully, wholly, only digital was a really important way for us to learn about how do we effectively and efficiently deliver our services in a COVID world. We quickly created a library from home webpage that wasn't new content, but brought together all the content and services that we offered in the one space. And the message being that we are open, we're online anytime, anywhere. And also did the same thing to support learning from home for parents in particular and students. We started reopening our spaces on the 18th of May with the info zone here on the ground floor that many of you will know as being our first space. And we did that consciously because it offered computers for the public to use. And one of our very first clients on the first day was someone who needed a computer to access their Centrelink account. So it was a pretty powerful way to see the impact on what people had been missing out on. We, of course, are following all the registration requirements, but if, you know, I'm sure many of you in public library will have the same issue in particular of people wanting to use library services who don't have a mobile phone or don't have an email address. And those considerations about how to capture their registration details have been complex. We've slowly been opening more of our spaces, but aren't fully operational now, but the really responding to clients' needs. So the demand was for quiet study spaces and access to our unique collections in the heritage space. So we've opened those pre-bookable or book when you get here if there are spaces for you, and they tend to run at about an 80% capacity. It's reassuring to know that people wanted us to open again and wanted to use our collections. And it was exciting for staff to be back on site and be able to offer and interact with clients directly. More spaces are slowly being opened. We opened, in terms of our collections, our reference collection, we made that a click and collect offer. And before, within half an hour of turning on click and collect, people were already starting to request items and coming in to collect them. So our collections currently on site aren't browsable, but are available on site as a click and collect offer, either on site or for you to take home.
Very cool.
Spaces are now opened. The corner opened last week, and they started after months of online storytelling, doing face-to-face story time. Approximately 50% to 60% of the staff are on site, and our complexity, like many of you I'm sure, is meeting our COVID safe requirements and ensuring that there's enough space and capacity in the back of house areas for our staff. So it's a mixture of spending time on site and being able to connect with teams and spending some time at home. I suppose I just wanted to finish with some of our success stories in terms of being digital. So our online visitation grew by 20% and 20% over our target, expected target, and 40% of our online visits happened in the last 3 months. So I think there's clear evidence that people wanted and engaged with our online content. And now our challenge is, how do we balance our opportunities to be in that online space and deliver to multiple people, as well as activating our building?
Growth in digital delivery has definitely been something that we've heard discussed in a number of different instances. Okay, so Sarah, your turn.
Thanks, Tony. Hi, everybody. Here at QT, we have 3 libraries, and The words that come to mind when I reflect back on 2020 are positive. They're innovation, kindness, agility, connectiveness. And like, don't get me wrong, it has been tough. Like many other libraries, QT Library, we've had to quickly and constantly adapt to the changing environment. We did transition many of our staff to work from home in late March, early April, but we did keep our 3 libraries open the entire time. And this has been our biggest challenge here at QT. We had changing services, of course, to fully online. We removed lots and lots and lots of chairs from the building, and then we had to find lots and lots of spaces to store them in. We also had to purchase many sanitary wipes and webcams and headsets and get everyone prepared to work from home. And we had to, of course, update library systems and our website to implement the regular policy changes, such as borrowing and document delivery that were happening. But during all of this, the QT library team, like many other libraries everywhere, we rolled up our sleeves and we tackled everything that came our way, because we were directed to stay open, even when most libraries around us and other QT support services were closing. We did reduce our opening hours, but looking back at that period, even though we were concerned about remaining open, we were actually pleased that we did, because not only did it mean that library staff who couldn't work from home could stay on campus, but over 180,500 people came through our doors between March and June. And many of these, of course, were students, both domestic and international students, who needed internet access, a place to study online. And the students were really grateful. We were regularly getting feedback to say that they're thanking us for staying open. So even though we were initially concerned about staying open with only a small team on campus, and it was the collection access staff who were extremely efficient and agile and resilient, all those fabulous words to describe them, we did have the majority of the QT library team working from home, keeping busy, operating our services online, and our resources, keeping them operational at the high standard that we're used to. But the collection access team who remained on campus did wonderfully. And I can't tell you, as an acting manager, how emotionally difficult it was to be told that I needed to work from home, but I still had a team that was on campus, and every day asking them to carry out tasks like floor counts, updating signage, moving even more chairs, and opening and closing the library, all from my kitchen table at home. But the key was communication, and we all ensured that we kept connected regularly throughout each day. The other major concern that we had with remaining open was our physical resources in the library. So again, we had a small team on the 3 libraries, but we were concerned about not only the library resources, but the artwork that was in the library, or hardware, or PCs. Back in 2019, we were fortunate to have our RFID project, and it couldn't have come at a better time, because we were regularly looking at our daily gate count reports, and they were indicating that everything was safe. There was no major issues reported during that period. And actually 9,000 items were borrowed from the library during that time. And it turned out that all the visitors to the library were honest and respectful, and they looked after the collection as much as we normally do. And of course, off campus and online, our inquiry service channels, we have Zoom appointments with students, and we have a chat service, and the stats were going through the roof, are enormously popular. And we have a champion library advisors team that worked really busy answering all those questions from staff and students, all whilst keeping up to date with the constantly changing library policies and services. And like most libraries, we were connected via MS Teams and Zoom. And although some of us weren't used to those platforms, we quickly got a handle on them. And our university librarian, Kim Lewin, she held daily updates with us, which was great. So we all felt really connected as a library team. And at last, we're getting to really know each other and to we could place names with faces. But of course, all the time while we're getting used to working off campus, we knew at any stage we'd be called back on campus. And it was in June that the Vice Chancellor said that she wanted all QT staff to come back in July. So then we had to reverse our strategies and create our return to campus plans and prepare our libraries for the return of students and staff. And so again, this is a big feat, not only physically, but emotionally. And so when we did come back on campus, we learnt to adapt again. On one occasion, we had to shut down the library as a precautionary measure, and we had to deep clean it, but it all went smoothly. And again, it just reminded us of the constantly changing environment that we're in. So where are we now? We have still many chairs hidden in lots of different strange, weird places behind the scenes. Semester 2 came to an end on Friday and exams have finished. So we have stopped doing floor counts for now. And some of us have chosen to remain from home and work from home a couple of days a week. So it's certainly been a year to remember, and we're all tremendously looking forward to our Christmas break. But like many of you, we're now a lot stronger, more connected. We're ready for 2021. Thanks, Tony.
Cool. Thank you very much, Sarah. Need to get back to where I'm actually at here. Our next person is Angela Orth, who is from our TAFE Queensland Library Network. Angela.
Thank you, Tony. It's lovely to be able to be here on this panel. Everything Sarah just shared really resonated with me. Very similar journey for TAFE Queensland Library. We have 21 libraries across TAFE Queensland, from Cairns in the north, Southport down at the Gold Coast, and west out to Toowoomba. And there's 67 staff that manage, run and operate those libraries. Our operating method kind of prepared us in a way unknowingly for what was coming, in that for several years now, because we are so diverse, because we do have students studying subjects such as nursing and childcare, community services and trades all across the state, and it's impossible on our existing budget to be able to purchase physical resources for absolutely every student when we service 120,000 students. So for years now we've been going towards an e-content, and 89% of our collection is now e. So we were in a way preparing ourselves for this enormous beast that is COVID-19 that was coming at us. The other thing that helped prepare us is that when we were formed as a team in 2016, we had to get to know each other. We meet together once a year on a staff day. Otherwise, we operate across Zoom, across MS Teams, and we do cross-team projects, and we deliver client services across team without physically getting together. So that dispersed team model that we operate under also prepared us. We too, had COVID come at us very quickly, and we had to be directed whether we were closing or not. And we operate under the direction of the Chief Academic Officer, and she directed us to remain open, but for staff to work from home. So libraries remained operating with a skeleton staff at every single campus. So there's 50 campuses, and we have 21 libraries at 21 of those campuses. And our students absolutely needed us to be there. Many of them, when we returned to staff being on campus at the end of April, told us how much they appreciated having that library space as a home away from home, somewhere to escape when they were maybe in their apartment and they felt like they were going a little bit stir crazy. The computer network, the internet, the books, a quiet study space, somewhere to just go and wind down their anxieties. The students really needed us to be there, and we were really grateful to be able to be there for them in a way that wasn't, we would have preferred to be there delivering the same services we always delivered, but directions took us in a different way. And so when we did return in a limited capacity at the end of April, that's what we were hearing. the students and educators managed to continue their learning journey, and we managed to change and adapt how we supported those students and educators. And we went to a completely virtual delivery from what was a face-to-face delivery, and everything went online. And even after we went back in that limited capacity at the end of April, we really did focus on our virtual support. And that virtual support, it was in a tentative test trial capacity in August 2019. We launched in a soft launch a library live chat service in August 2019, and it was moderately successful with between 600 to 800 interactions in those first three to 6 months. When COVID-19 caused us to go to virtual delivery, we went straight upwards. It just went through the roof, and we were doing 2,000 to 2,500 interactions a month, from everything from can you change my password, to complicated database and access and research questions. So it was great to be able to continue our support role and help students continue to go through their journey. And we had, as you know, I'm sure many of you did, we had students who graduated in the middle of COVID-19. We fully went back to face-to-face delivery at the start of semester 2, and it was very, very busy. We enacted a great deal of COVID risk controls, which made our days quite convoluted at times. You know, I never thought that I would spend my time sourcing hand sanitizer, and that I would, you know, ever did I think I would buy hand sanitizer off an electrical company operating out of the western suburbs of Sydney, and just about, you know, want to hug and kiss the guy who sold me 50 litres of hand sanitizer. The day I was able to buy hand sanitizer to keep my staff and students safe, it still makes me a bit emotional now, that the responsibility I felt. And the day that he said, yeah, sure, I can get that to you. If you can organise a courier, I can have it there at the end of the week. I seriously nearly cried. So there were things that I never in my career thought I would deal with. And we all had to do things outside of our scope. And I'm proud to say that my team really did an outstanding job, and I'm so proud of them. Where are we now? We're fully operational, juggling a library live chat that the students and educators do not want to part with face-to-face delivery as well. So it's a great problem to have, but it is something we have to scale at the same time, in that we've got the same number of staff with no FTE growth available to us to be able to enhance services that we know our students and educators want and need. So that's one of our challenges, but it's a great challenge to be able to have. We too are really looking forward to a Christmas break. We're really looking forward to being able to close down libraries for a 3-week period, and to be able to prepare for what we know will be a very busy semester 1 delivery. We're looking forward to that. We're very grateful to be able to have that opportunity. We're grateful we're still here. We're grateful we're still operational, and we're grateful that our students still want to attend TAFE Queensland and tell us that they need us. So yeah, that's our journey.
And an interesting journey it has been. Okay, so thank you, Angela, for that quick share. And we now move to Matt Pascoe. And if everyone pays attention to our lovely Survivor logo, I'd like to point out that Matt is a library dude. Thank you.
Thanks, fellow library dude, Tony. And thanks. It's been really wonderful listening to everyone's war stories. It's amazing how we've got, obviously we've been sharing so many of the same kind of constraints and problems, and it's, I'm struggling to see what the actual original conference story is going to be about COVID, because we've had so many of the same problems, and everyone's been rising like absolute champions to deal with them so well. So from a public library perspective, our journey's been a little bit different. Having said that, we were already on schedule for an absolute bumper of a year before 2020 turned into an absolute horror show for everybody. But it was we've this year was scheduled for 2 new libraries that we were going to bring online, well, 2.5 really, and we're in the process of doing that as we speak. And so it's really been something like delivering a baby on a plane where 2 of the engines are on fire. It's felt like, because there's been so much that we've had to coordinate in terms of managing all of the usual stuff, which is all pretty unusual when it comes to bringing new libraries online whilst the global pandemic was happening, and at the same time having to solve all of the exact same kind of problems. So yeah, we had a similar sort of a similar sort of problem to solve with how we go forward working from home, or what that blend was going to look like. But we very rapidly were given instructions to, we were designing a model where we do a little bit here and a little bit from home, but we were given instructions that everyone was to get out. And luckily we've had a really effective and agile digital services team who were able to mobilize extremely quickly and coordinate with our ICT team. And we had our entire libraries team, along with our customer service team, at home within a week. And put in perspective, about 5 people had worked from home prior to that. And by the end of it, we had about 100 people working from home, and no loss of response time for the customer service team, which was great, because we thought that was going to take 24 months to actually get to that point, and we got there in a couple of days. So yay, COVID. But the rest of the really great work was that we were able to spin up a couple of new sort of interim roles, where our collection coordinator became our work packages coordinator, and she was able to develop a program of work packages effectively. So all the work that you've always wanted to do but never got around to do, like metadata cleanup and training across different systems. And then we were able to manage that across our whole team. So people who normally had face-to-face sort of work in a client services team were able to get busy with all this other great training and upskilling, and but also other work packages for stuff in the catalog and all kinds of other back of house things that you just never got around to. So we were able to have that all happening effectively in the background. But then, as at the same time, we were making trips on site where we could, social distancing to make sure that the new library at Rosewood was coming online okay. And that was delivered in July, and we had to coordinate an opening with we were into phase 3 of the lockdown then, so things were opening up, but we weren't able to do the normal great song and dance that you do when you bring a new library online with fireworks. And to put it in perspective, when we launched our new Springfield library, and James was there for that one, we had thousands and thousands of people there. I think it was upwards of 3,500 people made their way through over the weekend. And this time we kept the number at, there might have been 120 people. We really kept a firm lid on how many people were able to get through, which was really, really sad, because bringing a new library online is such a rare experience to sort of see, and the library's been so well received in the community that it would have been great to have had a big event to accompany it, but that's 2020. I won't rattle off everything else that we've been doing in our space. We were able to move back into normal delivery of a sort through July, and we were pretty much back in terms of collection delivery back to where we were before, and with our public programming events team slowly able to, or right now they're able to really start getting ambitious about what they can do. But we've had great results similarly in our online resources, ebooks through the roof, e-magazines through the roof. Our pay-per-use, which is really where we lean into with our ebooks, has been absolutely massive. I'm not sure how much of this is smoke and how much of it's accurate, but we've been told by our provider that we're running one of the biggest pay-per-use collections in Australia. So all of that has been, it's been similar to everywhere, but I'll be really keen to see how we move to get the people back. I want to keep, this is always what we've wanted, is to get everyone engaged in digital, and yay, we're there. But I'm really much more concerned now about making sure that people don't forget about the library. That we, I think, certainly with our service, we've done a really good job at building our membership and building our visitation and circulation, and that's all fallen off a cliff. And so now, my focus right now is planning for how we can build those numbers back, get that confidence in and engagement in the collection back, and get more people to our public programming and events. So yeah, that's where we are.
Very, very cool. And look, I'm already starting to see some themes coming through what is going to be our discussion. Our first question for the panel is, what interesting solutions did your institution use to keep teams connected? And this comes out of one of our earlier sessions where there was an unpacking of the use of virtual catch-up meetings, buddy systems, regular briefings, and other systems of promoting that sense of connectivity. So I'm going to hand that one initially over to Matt. And if anyone else feels that they have anything to contribute, feel free to jump in.
Thanks, Tony. Well, yeah, really quickly, what we jumped into right away was Slack. We didn't have a similar a similar channel or platform for more casual catch-ups and chats and messaging. And I knew that at the time, basically during most of the COVID crisis up until the end of July, that's been sort of what we could call our COVID crisis, I suppose, in Queensland. I was acting manager, and so what I rolled out right away was Slack, because I was aware that if we didn't do that, everyone would just jump on a Facebook anyway. If everyone's working from home and they're needing to connect with everybody and share jokes and chat, then Facebook's just there, and that's where they'll be. So I saw Mark Zuckerberg as our main competitor in that space, and so we moved into Slack really hard, and we started using it as a sort of a check-in tool in the mornings. But we ran lots of fun, show us your pet, show us your work from home rig, some absolutely hilarious stuff there, which is completely not workplace health and safety compliant, involving ironing boards, and people were holding microphones to their hands, and but it was great. It was really great. And that was really, it's lost all of its novelty now, but at the beginning, that was a really great way for everyone to keep checking in. Our leadership team had daily check-ins in the morning. Every day we were meeting at 8 o'clock to basically 8:30 every day, because there was so much data coming in, there was so much coordination work to happen. We just couldn't rely on our old systems taking care of everything. So we were able to keep tabs on each other and make sure that we all knew what was going on in each other's spaces. So then we basically amped up all of our normal face-to-face team catch-ups and made sure that they were happening a lot more regularly. That along with checking in on those work packages and all the training that we were providing, kept everyone integrated and connected.
You're very cool. Sarah, you had a real experience with your teams being, both on campus and not on campus. How did you guys bridge those gaps and preserve the functionality of the teams?
Yeah, Tony, it was hard initially to make sure that we were connected, but very similar to what Matt was saying, we had leadership meetings like every morning, but then our university librarian Kim, she also very quickly introduced the daily catch-ups for the whole library team. So the people on campus, they would Zoom in and meet with us people who were working off campus. And we had some great fun days, like Matt was saying. We had dress up Fridays. Another colleague, Jenny, she ran chair yoga. And in fact, a big shout out to Bond Library too, because we all collaborated, and we actually joined their yoga sessions. And so libraries online joined together, but it was so important to keep connected, and not just Zoom, because there was those constant one after the other Zoom meetings, that we made sure we set up MS team site. So we'll have like a site for fun and laughter, but also a site for sharing, channels for sharing information. As Matt was saying, it's constantly changing, but it worked well.
Yeah, no, and there's definitely been the idea of incorporating fun and using different communication channels. We've seen Slack, we've seen Zoom. There's been a few others that I've heard mentioned by people in amongst these discussions. Does anyone else have anything to add to that one?
It's Anna here. We did a similar things. We used Zoom, but we also used Yammer. And my team was responsible for Trivia Thursday. So there was a commitment to come up with trivia questions and looking for volunteers and people that were trivia hounds to sort of run that. So it gave different people the real opportunity to take the lead in that space. But the other thing we did that hasn't been mentioned was Vicky McDonald, our CEO, had chit chat with the state librarian once a week. So different staff could just pop in and have a conversation with the state librarian. It was very informal, but an opportunity for people to connect with the CEO. And it was a good opportunity for us to sometimes hear what we weren't hearing through the normal channels, but something that wouldn't normally happen in that physical sort of space.
Very cool. And look, you know, the informal is valuable. I know that ALIA as an organisation for our industry has had the Friday afternoon drinks happening. I've attended a few of those over the months. They've been it's been enjoyable to hear the experience of people out of South Australia and Victoria and, you know, other parallel institutions to my own in different states, and the different experiences that they've been having.
Tony, it's Angela here. One very, very enlightening outcome of, and we did very similar things using virtual delivery and Zoom and MS Teams. We had to adopt MS Teams quicker than we might have, and that's been a very good thing for TQ libraries. But prior to COVID and the virtual world we had to inhabit, our focus was on let's reduce meetings, let's make sure we're meeting for a purpose, no, you know, free meeting Fridays and things like that. Whereas we instigated regular catch-ups and daily briefings, and teams have, the 4 individual teams within TQ Libraries have loved it so much and loved that communication and the relationship building that not quite as often, but those meetings and relationship building methods are continuing. So there's been a really great outcome where we were, as a management team, focused on let's have less, let's not overburden, and yet unbeknownst to us, that's what our team was seeking, and so that's continuing. So it's been a really great byproduct.
Very cool. Okay, I'm not going to go on to our next scripted question because our moderator informs me that there's been some interesting questions happening in the chat. So Annie, would you like to pick a question for us?
Yes, thanks, Tony. There's a question from Rachel who has a question for Sarah. She says, I love hearing recently from Nicole Clark, who was from our previous webinar regarding cultivating your team environment at QUT. It was so well done. Do you think your library teams will keep this amazing connection up if things turn back to normal?
Yeah, Rachel, thanks for your question. Definitely. And it's kind of like we're back to normal now, since that most of us are fully on working back on campus. And even though we don't have Kim's daily updates, we now, just like what Angela's saying, that we all said that let's keep going with this connectiveness. So we are still meeting twice a week, the entire library, and it's just fantastic. And we are in involving in those those updates, like initiatives like share it sessions, and we still have our dress up days and things like that. So yeah, it's enhanced it, just like what everyone's been saying, that there's a lot of good things that are coming out of this bad.
Cool. Look, the next question in the sequence was, has your library or your institution considered gamification as a way of working? There was a very good presentation from the guys at Bond University in one of our earlier webinars where they had all of us participating in a gamified process. And it was enlightening just how productive that could be in a short space of time. So I have got Angela down as someone who might like to at least kick off conversation around that one.
Thanks, Tony. When at TQ Libraries, when we've looked at gamification, we started with 3 questions. And our questions to ourselves and to the management team was, number 1, does our end user, does our client, does our student have any interest at all in gamification? What does the student want? The student being our main client, educator being our second most in-demand client. So what do they want? Do they want it at all? Is there an appetite for it? When we've gone to our student and asked them to name their top 5 services and resources that they value about what we deliver, gamification is not in the top 5. It's in the top 10, but it's not in the top 5. And what they're seeking is, and it was really great to see, is they value the interaction with the library staff member at the forefront of what we are delivering. They saw that gamification could enhance what they're learning, but that wasn't their greatest priority. The second question we asked ourselves, is there anything that we do or that we're delivering, or is there anything in our core business? And we talk a lot at TQ Libraries about our core business, and that's very important to us to make sure we are focused on the core things that we're meant to be doing and that our student wants from us. Is there anything in the core business process that can be enhanced with gamification, or are we delivering what's required already? And we saw that there was a market there for a small enhancement with gamification, but that our client was telling us that what we're delivering and the way we're delivering it is how and where and when they want it to be delivered. Then the third point that we had a look at is, do we have capacity to actually do this? And this is an important question that we ask ourselves when we have innovation days and we come up with great ideas. And we can come up with 100 great ideas, but do we have the capacity to be able to take this on, knowing that our staff are so passionate and committed that they will go forward and be enthusiastic about anything we ask them to do, but are we asking them to do too much? So they're the 3 key things we looked at before we went into gamification. And we decided that yes, there was a need within our business to do that, but we had to make sure we could do it within budget, within our capacity, and meeting the student need for what they wanted. It's no point us thinking of something great if it actually missed what the students needed. So one way that we have brought gamification into our libraries is through the purchase of high quality, really usable touchscreens that are mobile and bookable. And some augmented reality as well in a very small way. But the end result for us was very interesting, and we didn't expect the outcome to be that our students would tell us, hey, gamification's great, but it's not what I want most from you. So we went with what our client was telling us. So that was a very interesting outcome to us. We really thought our students would be like, yes, please, let's gamify everything kind of thing. And it turns out that wasn't what they wanted. So that was our very, very interesting journey in gamification. So not quite, probably, or maybe what you were expecting, but that's where we ended up.
No, a really, really honest and thorough answer to the question, have you considered gamification? And thank you for unpacking the method of considering that validly in terms of, core business and operational considerations. Has anyone else had some thoughts around that or experiences over the recent period that they'd like to add to the discussion? I think you've nailed it, Angela. Annie, have we got another question from the crowd?
Yes. So we have a question here from Kirsten, who's asking, how are you balancing staffing capacity to continue to deliver both digital services and on-premises services? I think this is just addressed to anyone.
Okay, I don't think there's an easy answer. Clearly, we're all thinking and being silent. I think for us, one of the things is also to look at how can we leverage a physical activity into a digital object as well. So if we're, and we were doing this before, but I think now we can do it more strongly and better. And that is, if you are going to have an event or a conversation or a panel, then let's record it and make sure, as we're doing now, that we're engaging in real time with our digital audience, but then also making it available as a experience that you can go back to. In our exhibition spaces, looking at not only how do we make more of our physical exhibitions also provide a digital experience, but what exhibitions work best as a digital experience. And I hope many of you have seen our digital exhibition called 20, looking at 20 years of digital photography in our collection. So it is, with competing budgets and needing to activate our buildings, which we want to do, it's how do we look at the balance of making what we're already doing, both research, the thinking, whether it's an exhibition or an event, work in both environments.
Cool. Okay, I'm going to go back to the script just a little bit. The next question that we had was, how have service delivery models changed for your institution over the course of our COVID experience this year? I'm going to hand that one initially to Angela and see where we go from there.
Thanks, Tony. We've very much enhanced virtual delivery. We were moving into virtual delivery in a slow, steady, solid pace, and we had to really put our boots on and march in there. It was scary. We felt very underprepared. We felt that we weren't ready, and I'm not sure about you guys, but ready in our library organisation is absolutely perfect and good to go, and nothing's wrong with it, and we're happy 100% with it, because we do things. I tend to see that as library professionals, we do things really well, and we don't want to go out there to our client base with something that's half-baked. But in many ways, we just had to kind of go quick, get it out of the oven, get it out there, and get it out to our students. And our students were like, thank you so much, this is wonderful. And we were thinking, oh, we haven't done a good enough job. And yet our students were saying, this is fantastic, this is exactly what we need. So our delivery model had to adapt in that we couldn't perfect everything, and that at times we had to go with what we had. And we was very surprised in that the student was so grateful for what we were able to deliver. Then, of course, we couldn't help ourselves. We did build on it and we did enhance it, and it's turned into so that the library live chat service that we began softly last year has turned into this really enhanced service that our students are telling us, you can't reduce it, we can't live without this. And enhanced information literacy sessions that every week my learning service and client service librarians come to me with a new proposal, an enhanced way of delivery and a new way of doing things, but not reinventing the wheel, thinking much, much smarter and using the resources we've already got, working within our capacity, working within our within our structure, working within our FTE, because we are stretched, there's no doubt about it. And we are delivering face-to-face, which of everything we were before, plus this enhanced virtual delivery, that was not in our model for about 2 years, because we thought we needed to build our staffing numbers to deliver it. So yeah, that's where we're at, and we can't let go of either.
Cool. Sarah, that was the TAFE experience. I wonder how much that generalizes across to the university delivery.
Yeah, totally. We have an environment university of a lot of courses are either blended, so face-to-face and online, or fully online, and it's just accelerated those courses, or even within the library, any workshops that we were intending to make fully online to become fully online. We have the advanced information research skills units, accredited mentoring unit that the library run, and there's 4 workshops. We'd always done them face-to-face for 2.5 hours, those sessions, and they were instantly made pretty much online once we were once the university went online and closed the campus except for the library. And so we learnt how to then to work on those workshops to make them fit the online environment, have now reduced them to 1.5 hours. So I think going forward, we'll be looking at keeping that structure. But yeah, there's been changes, but at the same time, we were there almost already. A lot of our services were provided to meet the needs of our off-campus students around the world.
Yeah, I know even for myself, you know, in my role as a librarian, I've been acquiring digital resources, ebooks, for teachers to use to kind of get to the students in place of trying to put physical books in every library. And for, you know, a good couple of years, it was like sort of pushing something up a hill, you know, and all of a sudden they're like, we have ebooks, buy more. It's amazing. And my supervisor actually said, never waste a good catastrophe. Public libraries, has this trend continued to cross into that space? I'm going to pass to Matt first and then maybe let Anna comment on that as well.
Unmute. Wow, the number of times a day I have to remember to do that. I'll be interested to see what our new operating model looks like, and yeah, to what extent all the changes we've made do translate. There's so much that that I think we're yet to learn about what it is that we do in public libraries. I think that there's in terms of what post-COVID actually looks like, which is a bit going a bit broad, I think, but there's such a relationship with space and the physicality of libraries that was just so unspoken before, and but it's now the exact opposite of what we're supposed to do to survive in our context. So I think that we're all having to, as I said before, I think that my concerns are that those sort of some unspoken kind of concerns now will actually start to impact what our service delivery looks like, and perhaps it won't actually revert to what it was like before. And so how that translates into how our teams are actually engaged in the business. It's all new learnings. I think there's so much that's going to be discovered in the next 12 months, especially if we move into some sort of recovery phase. And I think we're really just now, even though we're all veterans at doing this sort of stuff, and that's increased team awareness and all these new novel ways of doing our work. I think in the next 12 months, we're really going to learn some new things about the actual library business, how much of it will remain digital, how much of it will remain digital and will rust on those customers, and how many new ones how many of the old ones will come back, or whether or not we actually see some real issues in trying to achieve the if there's a full year of people not enjoying public spaces in libraries the same way, if that will actually start to affect the way that we work. So I believe that there's a lot to learn, and that'll in the actual business and what it is we're doing, and how that affects how our teams support that business. Yeah, I think it's going to get quite complex and complicated.
I'm hearing there being less certainty in the public library sphere than we're seeing in some of the educational library spheres. Anna, in terms of client engagement with public libraries, you're probably hearing from a lot of different forms of libraries in a lot of different contexts. Is there anything that you think that we can add to this?
No, it's a very consistent message that, you know, Matt's shared with the public libraries that we're speaking to. The numbers aren't coming back in droves, and it is really interesting when you think about your own personal experiences of, you know, being in shopping centres. You know, how many people are still not venturing out as much as they would have before. I think it'll be interesting to see what happens over the Christmas breaks, whether that draws people back, you know, summer programs, air conditioning, internal travel, whether that means there's more stopping in places like the State Library. But I mean, we had a board meeting here today, and one of the board members said, you know, his local library was like a morgue, which was obviously not the usual state of affairs pre-COVID.
Cool.
I just want to share a project that we did in terms of the digital service space that I thought people might be interested in. You may not be aware that for the past year now, the State Library has taken over the management of the Anzac Square Memorial Galleries. So that's a front of house role and the curation of the content at the gallery, and open for business if you're in Brisbane CBD and looking for somewhere to visit. But we, of course, there was no Anzac Day memorial commemoration this year. And we found out 4 weeks before Anzac Day that there was going to be no service. So we quickly tried to think about what would that look like? how do we want to engage with the community in this space, and came up with a program Commemorate Differently. But at the centre was the use of voice activation. So it basically meant looking at our content, selecting 9 digital stories, short snippets from both World War I and World War II and post-World War II, working with a company to create a voice-activated app that you can access through Alexa or Google Assistant or your Google Home device, and simply by saying launch Anzac Stories or tell me about Anzac Stories, you get this transactional prompt that tells you, that asks you, do you want to listen to the last post? Would you like to hear a story from World War I? And it takes you through the journey. And one of the options we offered was, would you like staff to place a poppy in the Memorial Gallery on your behalf? So we had 265 requests in 5 days for poppies to be laid. And then we asked people, would you like to see a photo of that poppy? And they then had to leave their address details. So we took photos, sent them the photo of the poppy in the gallery, but it also meant we could connect with them about some of the other services that were available. And that was extended for Remembrance Day. And we had over 14,000 visits before Remembrance Day on the weekend before, mostly coming from the UK. So I think the opportunity that voice gives us as a different way to provide services in a myriad of ways. You know, imagine being in the car and having kids in the back seat and being able to ask Alexa or Google Assistant to tell a story to the kids in the back seat. That transaction that we've moved to in terms of online chat could become a transaction through voice activation. So again, it's that whole thing about having a catastrophe mean that we look at opportunities, but now we're looking at what does this mean for future library services that we can offer in this new voice-activated medium.
Cool. There's almost a segue from that one, I think, to the next of our scripted questions, and that is, speak to us about the ways in which your staff have struggled or excelled during the change in work practices that has occurred over the course of our 2020 COVID experience. And we had some compelling presentations from one of our presenters in particular, who gave a very deeply personal story of struggling with mental wellness and the importance of overcoming that, and indeed excelling at what she did through overcoming that. And I just wondered if, as managers of your organisations, you were able to speak to what that looks like from where you sit.
I can tell share what staff have done with, in response to, in April, May, we conducted a wellness survey with staff when most of us were working from home. And one of the outcomes, there was some really great feedback on our communications and some of the challenges that we were addressing, but it was pretty clear that some staff weren't feeling as connected or were disengaged with the workplace. So we set up a health and wellbeing team, sent out EOIs for staff to contribute and be part of the team, and got 12 staff who nominated themselves to be part of the team. And they took on the responsibility for looking at activities that would work well from staff who were working at home. They were committed to looking at activities that would work for introverts as well as extroverts. And they came up with, obvious things like virtual morning teas, setting up or finding a wellness buddy that you could connect to, virtual catch-ups, sending staff a gratitude e-card, or just reminding staff to say thank you, or leave a post-it note on someone's desk to say thank you. But they did things like a virtual lunchtime walk strategy, where you could walk with someone and talk, walk together and share your working experiences online, created a Spotify playlist to support exercising, wellness tips for diet, exercise, meditation, and mindfulness were shared weekly. So there was a strong connection with staff because of the ideas, I think, were generated by staff themselves, and it had some pretty strong outcomes in our follow-up survey.
Very cool. I know within my own workplace, particularly when most people were in a working from home space, that was less of a thing with the libraries than it was with much of the educational teams. But there were regular well-being surveys, and maybe Angela could speak to the shape of that and how management approached it.
Thank you, Tony. It was about the way that we managed it in TAFE Queensland Libraries was ensuring that we didn't overmanage our team, because we knew that our team members are very capable, very able to monitor their own workloads and their own work-life balance, but we balance that with checking in and making sure that they're okay in this new normal. So that finding that balance was somewhat of a challenge. And for some people, the checking in was up here. And for others, it was, I'm fine. What are you checking in with me for? I'm down here. And so it was knowing your staff. That was really important. So, and if we didn't and we weren't sure, it was, okay, let's ask once, listen, and then move forward. We too, and I have a health and wellbeing group, and it's one of the best things we instigated. It was a group that was in action before COVID hit, but it came into its own during COVID. And it's an internal group led by one of our team leaders with team members on the group. And they are just wonderful. And sometimes it was a funny thing. Sometimes it was very serious, a serious message. Sometimes it was about a physical item, very much like yours. And that group have been nominated for a TAFE Queensland award for the contribution to our team that they did. The other thing that we found was that when we were working from home, our libraries were still open, but we weren't operating them. Our team was saying, hey, we're doing really well with all the library-based work, but we're looking for something a little more meaty to do. And we then partnered with other TQ teams, and we were able to gain traction so much quicker and bring about partnering in a meaningful way with something that had an absolute connection to TAFE Queensland education product, that as a management team, we've been trying to gain traction to show our team members and their skill sets and our librarians, and look what they can bring to your team, look what they can bring to your product. We've been trying to gain traction for quite some time. Suddenly, the skills we had was what other teams across TAFE Queensland wanted, needed, and were desperate for. So we were able to go, hey, we're here, we're ready to help. And the librarians just absolutely exemplified their skill set. They did an absolutely fantastic job. Our library technicians and our library assistants also played an absolutely valuable role. And as a result, we're still working with those teams in a much reduced capacity because, hey, we can't be everything to everybody all the time. I have a bit of a saying in our management team that whatever we do, and whatever output and the work we do, it has to be meaningful, but it has to be, we need to ensure that the work we're doing is trunk of the tree work. So that if there is the need to reduce, which sometimes in an organisation there is, or restructure, or go in a different direction, and that happens in all organisations, and so you go with that, but that the work we do is trunk of the tree. So rather than being on the edge of the tree in the leafy bits that can easily be lopped off in order to let the tree grow a bit more, we're not lopped off. Or as much as possible, what we deliver is not lopped off, and that, you know, we don't get put through the chipper. Nobody wants that. But that we're right in the middle of the tree, and that in order to cut out bits of what we do, they need to cut into the trunk. And no organisation is going to cut into the trunk because it damages their tree. So we made sure that that was an opportunity we took, and we jumped in, and it was really exciting. And we've got these partnerships that we never dreamed we would have before. So that's been a great outcome.
Very cool. So we've heard the importance of initiatives for wellbeing being driven by the staff, the allowing that to flourish. We've heard the importance of personalizing the level of support to what's appropriate for the people that are receiving it, not to over or under support individuals. Sarah or Matt, do you have anything else to add to the mix in that?
Tony, just like Anna and Angela here at QUT, we've had a wellness program at QUT, the university, for a long time now. So that just accelerated at this point. But I think the hard thing was that, like exactly what Angela's saying, is getting, you know your staff members, and knowing that they have a lot of other things happening during COVID, like they've got children now at home, learning. They might have family members that they're very concerned about. And so it's just recognizing all those different environments that each staff member was in. And exactly what Angela said is having that balance of not micromanaging them, but making sure that they had that freedom, that you're working from home. It's just like you're working here. I'm giving you that freedom. But here's a day. We had a Kelvin Grove Library daily cuppa every afternoon where you could come in if you just needed to vent for what's going on at your house, or what you needed to chat with your colleagues, but it wasn't at all mandatory. So if people just needed to get on with their, what they were doing at the time, we missed them, but it wasn't essential that they joined us. And we're still continuing those cuppas like a couple of times a week.
Yeah, no, I absolutely admire and agree with everything that everyone's said. The only thing that I'd say that any different in our approach, and it was very specific to the real sort of the second quarter at the start of the year when everything was going pretty crazy, pretty fast, was to continually remind everybody, but yeah, that things weren't normal, and that they weren't expected to be superheroes, but also that what they were doing and the work that the active measures that people were taking in changing their lives were helping. That it was we were doing these things not because of regulation or something. We were doing it to effectively save one another's lives, and that the reaction we were having to COVID was not only just something that we all had to deal with in terms of what a hassle it was and how hectic it all was, but it was fundamentally important to keeping our civilization running. Like that, it was something that we all were doing a lot more than just working from home. That we're all actively participating in a global effort to try and save lives. And I think that at the end of the day, that really helped to just remind everyone that there was actually something at stake here that was bigger than us, and helped sort of maybe put in a bit of perspective why we were being put into such a crazy situation in the first place. And I always made a point of thanking or tried to remember to thank our teams for all the hard work they were doing at just keeping my family alive or my parents alive by doing their bit to make sure that we, this disease thing, that disease part of the whole hassle that is COVID, was actually something we managed to contain, and it was because of all their hard work and all of the great things that they did to keep me and all my friends and family safe. So that was something different we did.
Cool. We've had a broad-ranging conversation here. I know there's likely to have been other questions in the feed, but I'm going to cut to our last question. Sorry, timing is everything. Cut to our last question, and it is, in a nutshell, of the many adaptations that you've seen and that we've discussed here this evening, which ones do you think are going to stick moving on into the new normal? And as an extension of that, perhaps, we'll deal with that first bit quickly, but the follow-on to that in this question is, what do we think this might mean for our sector as a whole? I'm just going to throw that open for whoever wants to talk first.
I can start off. Kim, our university librarian, she sent out a staff survey to everyone to ask them like how they went during this, how they're feeling. It's like a pulse check. And one of the biggest responses that we got was the whole working from home and how it has reduced travel time, it's more flexibility, work-life balance, and it just reduced costs for people. So it took a little while to look at this more when we did return to campus, but now QT is looking at that flexibility, and we do have staff members who work from home, on a couple of days a week, and or if something pops up, they need to stay at home that day, it's now not a problem, whereas before COVID we didn't even think about that. So I think, Matt, you're saying that no, you had a very small team too that had ever worked from home. The same at QUT Library. It was a big shock to our system back in March, but now I think going forward that will be part of our library culture, is that flexibility and that nice work-life balance. And also, again, with our services online, it's going to mean that it is an important factor that we always consider both face-to-face and online, which we have at universities, but even more so going forward. And that'll also lead into like budget changes, but another key element that's come out of this is open access and open education resources, and the important need, like Tony, you were saying, how now everyone is interested in the digital and e-books, but a lot of our academic staff are also now more interested in open education resources. So there were moments during COVID and lockdown where we had exams that used open book textbooks, but those textbooks were limited to a certain amount of users and they couldn't access, perhaps come on campus and use our physical collection, whereas open an education resource like an open textbook would have helped that situation. So there are a lot of issues, and I think there's going to be a lot of changes and a lot of great things, initiatives coming out of this.
Cool. Anna?
I think all of the above. Thanks, Sarah. But I think we've proved that we can do digital and that the community can do digital. And like we've said a few times, fast tracking and building our digital capacity as for staff has been a great win. It's now finding the balance of the digital and the physical and building the on-site experience that makes people want to come back.
Cool. Matt or Angela, just quickly, if you have something to add.
The only thing I would add, Tony, is other than what Sarah and Anna has contributed, and I'd second what they've said, is that we're no longer, at least at the TAFE Queensland Libraries experiences, we're no longer daunted by quick change. That we know it's possible, that while we don't welcome such a quick change and the vehicle for that change, we know we can do it. We have the tools to do it, and it's within us. And look what we've achieved by, the word is a bit overused, but it's a good word. But by that ability to pivot quickly and change and turn, fabulous things. We've had fabulous outcomes.
Cool. Look, I just want to take this opportunity to thank our panelists for taking the time out of their busy lives to contribute to this discussion. And I know that there's been a very worthwhile conversation come out of this, and I hope that our participants have all gotten something out of this. I know I have. And by way of recognition of that, the ALIA Queensland group will be ensuring that our panelists receive small gifts, tokens of our appreciation. I promise they won't be extravagant. And I'm going to move on in our procedure to the next part of things, which is where the lovely James Nicholson, the ALIA manager for Queensland, has a couple of awards to present.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
We can.
Great, fantastic. Thank you for that. Catherine, I wonder if you could maybe put on your camera, and hopefully she does that while I just talk a little bit there, because I'm excited to, always at ALIA, we want to reward and acknowledge any activity that happens within our industry, whether it be connected to ALIA or otherwise, if we can help highlight certain activities that people undertake. And one thing that people have to understand is that the format of ALIA is such that at the grassroots, coalface, grassroots level are our special interest groups. And one of those is ALIA Queensland. That is the conference, the meeting, the webinar we're on today. It's what the Students and New Graduates group do. It's what all sorts of, all regional groups, schools and down in across the whole country. And that's really the first point of contact for a lot of people. And so I can't stress enough how grateful ALIA are for these groups to be there and for the people that make up those groups, because they only exist through volunteers. And it's that volunteer work that really drives an absolutely key part of our industry, because for people coming into that are studying, swapping industry or whatever, it's a way of getting into our industry, speaking to people that are in the industry to learn from and to get involved and so on. Not only that, all the groups offer some really great opportunities for professional development, for connection, for friendship, for social events and so on. And like I say, it's the volunteers that drive that. And so these really awards that I want to present virtually, and that actually have already been sent to our recipients, are for 5 years of volunteer work within an ALIA group. And so those awards are for Catherine and for Tony. So two people that, you know, I have no doubt people constantly have nice things to say about, but are also grateful for your hard work. And I genuinely can't thank you enough, because I know that I was connected to ALIA Queensland when I first came into the industry, and so many others have taken that route too. But we've all enjoyed all the events that you've put on, and it only happens when people drive it through passion and through commitment, and we're really grateful for your support. So thank you, and hopefully you got your silver pins to wear proudly as a gesture of our kind of thanks, and certainly that doesn't just come from me, that comes from everyone at ALIA House, and certainly all of our members too.
Speech, Catherine.
Thank you. Thanks, James. Speech. No, thanks, James.
Can you run us through your 5 years, month by month? That would be fantastic if you know.
Well, if there's anyone listening out there, I'd definitely recommend being part of a group, because you do learn so much about, you know, event planning and meet wonderful people. So I definitely recommend it. Thank you.
Good speech. Good speech. Catherine has been the convener of the ALIA Queensland group for most of the 5 years that she's been in the group, and she's been a pleasure to work with. And having been there for all of those 5 years myself, and also receiving one of those delightful silver pins. Show us the silver pin, Catherine.
Can you see it?
There it is. All the bling. All right.
It's
cool.
not that big simply because it's pure silver. No.
It's heavy.
Cool. Thank you very much, James. It's always nice to be acknowledged. So this brings us to the final part of our evening, and that is the, so if I find the right screen to share, where am I? Here is this one, the Queensland Library Achiever of the Year Award for 2020. So this is an award that is usually presented at our annual ALIA Queensland conference, which this year has been replaced by the sequence of 4 webinars. This being the close of those, we are presenting the Queensland Library Achiever of the Year Award for 2020, which this year is proudly sponsored by Sage Publishing. So congratulations to our nominees. And the nominees for this year have been Daniel McDonald, Catherine Graf, and Stephen Harris.
Tony, sorry, can I just butt in there? I just
Yes.
wanted to provide some information about our nominees.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I just wanted to provide a little bit of information about the award, because we don't normally get many nominations. So please spread the word for next year. But this award is recognises individuals working in the GLAM sector in Queensland who have met one of or more of the following criteria. So developed an innovative practice, implemented a new service or technology, collaborated with groups or organisations to implement a successful venture, developed creative approaches to market or promote libraries, or shown a dedication to the advancement of libraries. And so, as you can see, we've received 3 nominations this year. And I've just got a little bit of information, and we've got some of them joining us tonight as well. So the first nominee is Daniel McDonald, who's a librarian at the Darling Downs Health Library. And Daniel was nominated for being an innovative health librarian and a great role model. Daniel has driven a number of projects this year, including a series of public talks on health topics. He developed and organised an online quiz during COVID lockdown, participated in and rolled out a training program for public librarians in the federal government's My Health Record program, initiated a podcast of health librarian interviews, and acted as a health library mentor. Daniel was nominated for his active participation in the Queensland Health Libraries Network, whilst providing outstanding service to his own health library clients. And Daniel's joining us tonight as well. So congratulations, Daniel, on your nomination. Our second nomination, Catherine Graf, who's the Principal Librarian Research Education at the Supreme Court Library of Queensland. Catherine was nominated for her work in supporting legal studies for secondary school students. Catherine oversaw a project team to develop a multifaceted and creative strategy to enhance all legal studies students' access to legal material and the development of their research skills. This included developing a new and innovative digital collection that expanded discoverability and online access to legal material, providing greater access to students. And she also saw an innovative and creative approach to continuing programs during the pandemic by providing classes via video conference to cater to teachers and students studying at home, and also offering these sessions to regional students who are previously they haven't been able to attend on site to the Supreme Court Library. So congratulations to Catherine. One of her colleagues is with us tonight. And our final nominee is Stephen Harris, who's the Information Services Librarian at Bundaberg Regional Libraries. Stephen was nominated for his work on a number of projects this year and his advocacy in extending the capacity of the libraries to the community beyond the building by creating a robust and active online presence. So some of the projects Stephen was involved in this year was a partnership with Jabiru Aircraft, which enabled the production of face masks for Queensland hospitals when supplies were low, loaning and instruction of iPads for residents in respite centres so they could communicate with their families and friends during COVID, creating an esports initiative and competition involving local high school students and partnering with Bundaberg's Child Protection Action Group for a special event, and advocating for a Zoom subscription and subsequent training for library staff and transitioning and creating new programs online for the Bundaberg community. And this included an online film club, an online chess club, and online community chats. So well done to all our nominees, and Stephen wasn't able to make it this year. You're giving it away, Tony. So our winner is Stephen Harris. So congratulations to Stephen. The prize Stephen will win is a Samsung Galaxy tablet from our Sage Publishing sponsor, and also a beautiful trophy. So congratulations to Stephen. And thank you also to Daniel and Catherine's colleague. And congratulations on your nominations.
Sorry, Catherine, my PowerPoint skills have failed me. The shadow was there before the text appeared. Applause.
Insert video applause. Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
So yes, congratulations to Stephen Harris. And that does very much bring us to the end of our discussions here this evening, and it also brings us to the end of our series of 4 webinars. So I would just like to look once again, thank Sage Publishing for their sponsorship of the Queensland Library Achiever of the Year Award, and to thank all of you for participating and for, by supporting what we do, you have contributed to this entire event. The series of 4 webinars have, I think, been a great success, and that success is down largely to the participants and to our presenters, and this evening our panelists, all of whom have given graciously of their time, and we have had an audience for them to present to, which is what makes it all worthwhile. So that brings us to the close of this evening's festivities. Thank you all very, very much. And I hope that you continue to work safely and collaboratively in the new normal that we have been discussing. Good night all.